Sure. Hello all, welcome to Robinsive Training. It's a continued video for the course Advanced Network Exploitation Expert. Myself Rikun Sindwad and I will be your instructor for this entire journey. I hold over 5 years of experience in cybersecurity. I'm a red teamer at work. I also do security researcher and hold multiple CVs. Couple of articles are published over Pen Test Magazine, OSCP, OSW and OSCP certified from Offensive Security. The course Advanced Network Exploitation Expert helps you to build core knowledge against network security and penetration testing. It is designed for everyone with the basic understanding for the cybersecurity domain, like basic networking and the basic pen testing things. An example would be anyone with the knowledge of CEH. Post completion of the course, you will able to gain core concept understanding over various topics, perform internal or external penetration testing, perform extensive network assessment, find security misconfiguration within Active Directory environment, able to do privilege escalation over Windows and Linux machines, write automation scripts, and many more to go. Please read the disclaimer before moving ahead with the course content. So this will be your fourth practical demonstration for the LFI vulnerability, or I would say local file inclusion. If you haven't watched the earlier one, then I would recommend to go back to the playlist and start from the beginning. We have already started way back with the basic concepts, like everything basic from the source code, explaining each and every code or each and every line of the particular code, vulnerable code, I would say. And then we move towards the vulnerability. What is the exact vulnerability, how we can exploit that. And for the exploitation, there were three different scenarios. First scenario was MySQL access with the log poisoning. Second scenario was MySQL access with the file permission. The third one was again Apache log poisoning and abusing it with the LFI vulnerability, and that could result RCE. So the next practical concept here that I would like to highlight is with the wrapper. So let's understand all the wrapper concepts and let's get it practical. So for the next practical approach, I have my source code updated based on the next approach. So we have already seen that where there was a file checks that was checking whether any dot dot slash is there, and if there is any dot dot slash present in the particular variable value, then it will going to remove that with the string dot replace function. However, here there is another approach which is often done by any developer, and what it will gonna do, it will going to check whether file name contains dot dot slash. If the file name contains this dot dot slash, then it will going to print echo. Echo will just going to print whatever the line you specify with an error saying that directory traversal detected. If this is not the case, then it will going to move towards the else block, and else will going to require once, means it will going to include one particular file, and that is what here. There is a typo. I'll just going to replace with this particular variable, and that should be fair enough. So what we see here, it will going to check this dot dot slash. Let's just give it a try by running our simple dummy PHP server. We already know that we can use capital S with the PHP, and we can specify on which IP address you want this to be hosted on, along with the port number separated with the colon. And perfect, now it's running. Let's move towards our browser. Let's try to access this particular site 127.0.0.1, and this was one of the case. What it is doing, if we specify any file name here, file let's say hello.php, then it will gonna include that hello.php. If I change it to blog, then it will going to show up the blog. If I change it to info, it will going to display that PHP info thing. All right. However, let's give it a try to use our old approach, that was dot dot slash secret.php. This time, if I try to add this dot dot slash, it says directory traversal detected. It will not going to work at all because it will not going to include whenever there is a dot dot slash. In order to bypass this type of scenario, what we can do is we can use multiple wrappers. Wrappers are like special syntax, or it's kind of protocol, I would say, that can be used in order to access particular file, particular location, or particular entity, I would say. For an example, from your browser, if you just type file colon slash 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 and hit enter, you will find all the directory structure in your Linux machine. Similarly, if you do it in Windows, you will find Windows C program files, all the data over the same. Here, what I'm gonna do, instead of going with the dot dot slash, I'll instead provide file protocol. So let's say file colon slash 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 etc slash passwd. Perfect. Now what you see here, I am able to read content of this particular file. We have already seen one of the wrapper that was PHP, and this was the entire query. I'm not going to hit enter because we already seen this in a last video, so I'll just going to exclude that. So this was another wrapper, such that we can use any wrapper that you can access from your browser or that your PHP supports. For an example, instead of PHP, let's just give it a try to use HTTP colon slash slash. This is another approach. And I want this particular, let's say, robots.txt file to be loaded here. So let's give it a try. Hitting enter. Boom. I get no response. Why? Well, there is a logic. So whenever you try to load any remote location through HTTP or any other protocol, or you can say wrapper, then it will not going to work at all. However, there is some certain condition. So what's that condition? Let's just understand. So now let's divide few things. LFI means loading or local file. Whereas there is another concept called RFI. That means loading remote file. RFI is what we are trying right now here with the protocol HTTP. As there is some certain configuration that has to be enabled for this RFI, I get no output at all. Now let's understand what's that configuration in our PHP code. I'll quickly navigate to my terminal, and there is a particular file called php.ini. That file contains all the configuration. Based on the different version, you will find different folder structure, but for me it's 8.2, so I'll go with this. In this particular, you will find allow URL include. That is what the flag or configuration we have to toggle. When this particular allow URL include is off, then you will not going to, or you will not be able to load any of the HTTP or HTTPS or FTP or such URLs. That is what mentioned here, right? So if I just change it to on and give it a go, of course, I need to restart my HTTP server, not the HTTP, let's say PHP server. And let's give it a try one more time by just refreshing the existing page. And boom, I am able to read the content of this particular file. That's perfect. Now what I can do, I can host a particular file that contains a malicious piece of code, or let's say a web shell, and I try to load that file. So let's give it a try. Very simple. What I'm gonna do, I have already connected to bbox. Let's navigate to their web hosting directory. So assume that this bbox is what my victim or what my attacker machine which I can have access to, and the machine which we are targeting, that is Kali Linux, is the victim one. So let's navigate to user, not the user, it's var www. If I type ls, yes, that's correct. And what I'm gonna do, I'll add another PHP file here. Vim, let's say shell.php, and let's try to add the code. I'll just instead search PHP one line shell. I'll find the one from here. copy the content, and I have already explained this, what exactly it does, right? Changing this variable from E to, let's say, CMD, and now let's save it. Now, assume that this is an attacker machine where you have hosted this particular file and you got to know you are able to load a remote file as what we have seen here. Coming here. Where's that? Not this. Let me close. Okay, here. So what I'm gonna do, I'll instead this robot.txt, I'll going to try shell.php, and that is what I have uploaded, and add the required parameter. So that was cmd equals to, let's say, who am I, and boom, I am able to execute command here. It says www data, which is usually used by this particular thing. However, there is a catch. The catch is, if I try to load with a parameter, so what the PHP will going to consider is this entire file along with the parameter. So always not add this question mark next to your PHP loaded file. Instead, you should always use and, because this is a parameter. File name is a parameter as well as CMD is a parameter. So you should always take care of it. Elsewhere, you're going to execute this particular code in your attacker machine itself. So if I hit enter this time, it should work. Let's wait for a short. Seems something is wrong. Let's see. Okay. Now I got another catch. So as I have this hosted as a PHP, it will not going to work. I have to change it to something different. So what I'm gonna do? mv shell.php to shell.txt. The reason behind that is, if it is PHP and I have hosted it on my Apache server, it will going to execute instead of getting the content. So now if I try to curl that particular file, so let me just do it very quickly. Here, it will going to return a particular value. Right, there is an error. It says, okay, PHP is not there. If I change it to txt, you will find the code right there. But if I change it to, let's say, PHP, so I'll just make a copy of it, shell.txt to shell.php. Let's try to read with the curl. This time PHP, I get no response because, yeah, that PHP got executed. So if I do something like cmd equals to who am I, it should work, but it will be on the B box, means my attacker machine itself. So always remember that if you are uploading through Apache server or something, try not to use PHP as an extension, go for TXT, PNG or any other as such. Now, as it worked, let's give it a try this time with the TXT and let's hit enter. Perfect. This says Kali. And as you know, this particular PHP server is running through a particular user that is Kali. If I type ipconfig, it's not there, ifconfig. Here we go. We get the response. ID, it works. So yeah, that's another way, an approach to have a proper shell using RFI. So the vulnerability eventually is LFI or file inclusion, I would say. However, there are two different, I can say, branches. One is the LFI and second one is the RFI. With the LFI, you can load any internal files. You might find some sensitive files through which you can get RCE. Whereas in RFI, you just load remotely accessible files. And those files can, of course, contain a malicious piece of code that will going to be evaluated. So yeah, for RFI, you have to remember one configuration, and let me show you that as well. Not here, supposed to be here. Instead Vim, I'll just cat. I'll grab for, let's say, allow underscore URL, and this is what it is. So you have to make sure that allow URL include is on. When allow URL include is on, then only you will able to do the remote file inclusion. Elsewhere, it will not going to work at all. So yeah, that is what all planned for today. Hope you liked, and if you did, of course, there is a like button that you can hit over. And yeah, that's it. That's all. See you next time.